Howdy, Immortallium here, and today I wanted to discuss CGI in anime. Now, when I say CGI in anime, I don't mean supplemental use of CGI in anime or CGI for backgrounds or CGI for vehicles, etc., etc. Because that's way too big a topic. That's something I'd like to do. I don't know, maybe on a live stream at some point or something. Something big and juicy. What I want to cover is an increasing trend in anime right now, and that is where, everything is CGI. The characters are CGI, the backgrounds are CGI, everything's CGI. A completely CGI production. And what has brought this on, all of a sudden? Basically, I've been watching Hunter x Hunter on Netflix, and, I prefer to watch the rest of Hunter x Hunter on Netflix because of the HD and all that, so I'm waiting for the last 48 episodes we brought on Netflix. If it doesn't, within maybe the next month or something, I'm probably just gonna, use Crunchyroll instead. But I, don't really use streaming services that much. I prefer DVD and Blu-ray, so I'm not subscribed. It'll be standard definition. I'll have ads, etc., etc. I won't be able to watch it on my television. I know I could make an American PSN account and download the Crunchyroll app there. But it just seems like too much work for, essentially nothing. Like, I'm just not really going to use Crunchyroll that much, to be honest. So anyway, and that's a completely different topic. So while I'm waiting to see if Hunter x Hunter is put onto Netflix, I've started watching another anime series on Netflix, which Netflix have been pushing very hard, and that is Knights of Sidonia. And I'm about 5 episodes into Knights of Sidonia, and already I want to have a quick discussion about its animation. Before I actually discuss that, I'm just going to quickly discuss, the very first time I came across, a complete CGI production anime. And that was, I'd say, along with most people's, Appleseed by Shinji Aramaki. Now, Appleseed was, being hailed at the time, as a brilliant technical achievement, etc., etc., to rival, most, Western animation productions, and it isn't really. I mean, it's very stiff, not very fluid at all, animation-wise, and the actual visual look of it, they hadn't mastered cell shading correctly. Everything looks a bit too bright, too kind of unclean. It's not a pretty film, that's the best way to put it, and the story's a bit hodgepodge as well. Now, they kind of corrected most of that in the sequel, which I know had a much bigger budget. Basically, the actual cell shading is pretty much, perfected in that. The animation is decently fluid. It's not perfect, but it is more fluid. And the story is a lot more up to there. But I want to discuss actual TV productions of anime, because that's becoming more and more prevalent. Again, there was an Appleseed television series called Appleseed 13, which I have yet to see. If any of you guys have seen it, I would love to hear your opinions on it. I've been kind of wondering whether or not to pick it up. Some people are saying it's very good, some people are saying it's very bad. I don't know what to do, so just tell me if you've seen Appleseed 13, what you think. Do you think I like it? I don't know. Anyway. But what I can say is that I've seen Freedom, which, it's a very good series. The first and last episode of it are a bit iffy in terms of quality, but the rest of the episodes are very good. But there is something I want to point out, and I do think it's a shame, because Freedom was done around, what was it, 2006, 2007, around that time. Knights of Sidonia, around 2014, in fact, I think it was March of this year, and they still have the same flaw. Now, in order to explain what that flaw is, I'm going to have to go back in time to Mushi Productions, set up by Osamu Tezuka in order to create Astro Boy. Basically, around that time, it was very hard for animation studios to be set up in other countries besides America. The reason for that was that American animation companies would, air their shows on American television. They make all their money back, and then they'd send them off overseas, and they'd be really, really dirt cheap for the local television companies to pick up. So it made, animation companies almost impossible to set up in other countries because they have to be cheaper than the already dirt cheap American cartoons. So, that was enormously difficult. And when Osamu Tezuka was producing Astro Boy, he created a bunch of techniques in order to cut down the cost of producing Astro Boy so that he could undercut the competition. One of those is the flaw here for the CGI, and that is the frame rate. Now, the old Looney Tunes, the old Mickey Mouse shorts, etc., they're animated in 24 frames per second, but that's actually very pricey to do and very work intensive. So most Western animation productions on television are 12 frames per second, because that's halving the cost essentially of animating, and it still creates a fluid look. Now, what Osamu Tezuka did was he went further, and he actually reduced that 12 frames per second down to 8 frames per second. And I remember, like, when I read that, it gave some kind of description, like he was using the after image created by the animation in order to create the sense of movement still, or something like that. I don't really understand that. But what I do understand is that frame rates and fluidity work differently in CGI than they do in hand-drawn. And that is, I think I read somewhere that the general rule is that in order to create the same fluidity as a hand-drawn piece, the CGI piece must be twice the frame rates, due to the fact that there's an increased level of realism in CGI, even if they're cel-shaded. So what does that mean? That means, for Western cartoons, if you're going to make a CGI piece, you're going to have to make it 24 frames per second in order for it to have the same fluidity as a 12 frame per second cartoon, a hand-drawn cartoon or traditional animated cartoon. So what does that mean for anime? The problem with Freedom and the problem with Knights of Sidonia is that they're still using those 8 frames per second. And what does that mean? That means if you were to break it down into the actual traditionally animated anime terms, that would be 4 frames per second, which is very, very jerky, very, very kind of unpleasant to look at. Because that's just something I want to point out. Freedom and Knights of Sidonia look really good. And if you pause in most scenes in either one, it will look pretty nice. It's when the characters actually start moving when, the problem begins. Very stiff, very jerky. And if they want to, throw us this whole CGI anime TV series, they're gonna have to increase the frame rate to 16 frames per second if they want to get the same level of movement as they do in 8 frames per second traditional animation. The problem with that, of course, is the fact that it'll increase the animation budget significantly. Now, for CGI, they'll have already created the models, etc., so the actual creation aspect of it won't change. But the actual cost of moving characters from A to B, etc., will suddenly skyrocket because of the fact that you'll be making, an extra frame for every other frame, etc. So immediately, the costs are going to skyrocket. And in this anime environment, where the industry is increasingly given less and less budgets to anime TV productions due to increasing piracy, due to declining home video sales, due to the fact that it can't get onto television in foreign territories, mainly the English-speaking territories, but even in other countries like France and Spain and Portugal, etc., they get increasing difficulties to get onto their television. The budgets are decreasing. So I'd say telling them, oh hey, you're going to have to increase the cost of animating these pieces enormously. They're probably not gonna like that. Which is why I think they're trying to shove down our throats, the whole, let's just animate at the same frame rate as the hand-drawn animation. But that doesn't work. Or if it does, it's very unpleasant from an animation perspective. If Japan and anime is going to go down this route, I want them to increase their frame rate. It's unlikely, but that's what I want, to happen. And, that's my main issue with CGI in anime. If they fix that, then I will become a lot more supportive of the actual movement of the characters, and, you know, the actual look of the series, etc. Because, as I said, I like the look. It's the animation I have a problem with. So yeah, that's my video. What I'd like to hear from you guys is, what do you guys like about CGI in anime? What do you guys not like about CGI in anime? Because I know a lot of people are very vocally against, you know, for some series. Like, I heard of a series called Kingdom. I haven't seen any of the episodes of that, but I do know that I think all the characters in that are CGI. And of course, you know, there's the Berserk films, the infamous Berserk films, etc, etc. And I think a lot of the flaws probably with those would be solved if they just up the frame rate by, you know, double it basically. But if you think, you know, that won't fix the issue, your primary issue, I would love to hear that. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say about it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.